The Lebanese president has called on the army and on security forces to restore order and calm in central Beirut after renewed protests turned violent there this Saturday. The Red Cross now says that 160 people have been treated for their injuries after skirmishes broke out between riot police and crowds of thousands near the Parliament building, with demonstrators throwing rocks, street signs and metal barriers. Well, for more, let's bring in our correspondent, Molana-Allen, who's covering this story for us. Layla, what more can you tell us about this Saturday evening's unrest?
We are seeing extreme violence today on the scale in terms of what we've seen over the last few months in these protests. Huge clashes since mid-afternoon. Earlier today, it was looking quite quiet after a very aggressive week, but then a group of protesters tried to get into the Parliament Square, which has been blocked off for months since these protests started and is always staffed by riot police. Riot police retaliated very aggressively immediately. And almost immediately started using water cannon, which has been quite rare. That prompted protesters to go off and gather larger groups and come back again and try and do that. And immediately we saw clashes, batons being used, lots and lots of tear gas, hundreds of rounds of tear gas have been shot in Beirut tonight. Downtown Beirut is covered milky white with that tear gas. And they're also using rubber bullets, and Human Rights Watch just speaking to them, saying that the way that they're using rubber bullets at the moment actually could be illegal. They're shooting at protesters who are running away, protesters showing their injuries, really horrific, bloody injuries they're receiving from these rubber bullets, which can be lethal if they're used too close. Protesters are responding, throwing rocks, as you said, they're throwing street signs as well. Fireworks also being directly thrown, big fires being lit everywhere, and the Lebanese Red Cross has confirmed that they have treated over 100 people already this evening at the scene, transported 65 to hospital, and they are at their highest possible level of alert. So real sparring between riot police and protesters this evening in downtown Beirut. Some protesters sending messages around their WhatsApp group saying, "We are at war now."
And Layla, officials have also come out to comment on this latest violence. Just what have they been saying, and how have those words been received on the streets?
Yes, so we have had several officials coming forward. We had, of course, President Molana-Allen came out and he said that he calls on the security forces and the army to restore peace to the streets, to protect peaceful protesters and protect property as well, to stop the vandalism. We're getting a lot of concern about the vandalism because, of course, so many banks over the last week have been attacked, and Beirut is a commercial centre, this part of Beirut, that's being attacked, and government leaders very concerned about that. We also had the current caretaker interior minister come out and she said, of course, I support the right of peaceful protesters to demonstrate, but again, not when they are vandalising public property. So she's sitting on the fence slightly there. And we also had the former Prime Minister, Saad Hariri, who was the caretaker Prime Minister until a month ago. He officially is not really supposed to be in government anymore, but he's such an important figure here, and he's still helping the new Prime Minister to navigate the waters of trying to put a new government together. He came out very strong words and he said, "We will not allow Beirut to be returned to a place that is full of front lines and destruction and violence." And of course, he's referring to the 15-year civil war here, which was fought between the different sects in Lebanon. So very evocative language he's using there. Now, the problem is, firstly, from the point of view of protesters, they have heard so much from these government officials since protests started in October. They say all full of unfulfilled promises. Nothing ever comes of it. And also, actually, these people, other than the president, are not officially really in government anymore. The interior minister, just a caretaker minister, as I said, they're the former prime minister, not prime minister anymore. And the current prime minister, Hassan Diab, has been very quiet. So they also think that the protesters also think these people aren't really our government, they're not really in charge of us. And the other thing is they seem very detached in the way they're talking about things. One analyst just said, they're talking about the situation as though a natural disaster has hit Lebanon. This is not a natural disaster. This is Lebanese people rising up and protesting for what they feel are their rights, for the fact that they feel their government does not represent them. So their government coming out and making comments about what they're doing doesn't really affect them anymore. They're not interested. They think it's much of the same thing. And as I said, they're in these WhatsApp groups, which really are what are being used constantly to organize these protests. They're saying that their own security forces, the protesters say their own security forces in the country are going to war against them.
Okay, Molana-Allen, our correspondent there in Beirut, thank you very much.